Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. While the title of this video might seem a little provocative, it's spot on. It really is. I've heard from a number of people here recently, I don't know, YouTube, I've been here 16 years. I can remember the old days when Thai Visa Forum was the end-all be-all of sort of the foreign intersection of ideas, if you will, the marketplace of Farang ideas out here in Southeast Asia. I guess you could look at it as such. You know, with the advent of sort of YouTube and online content creation, we've seen a lot of changes, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. One of the reasons I formed this channel was quite honestly to combat a bunch of just incorrect, inaccurate information that was just floating around the ether of the internet, and maybe one could say misinformation or even disinformation, because there seem to be a lot of people out here in the forum era who just kind of either spouted nonsense, didn't know what they were talking about, or kind of had a half notion of how things worked, and then would kind of comment on it. And I found people who would listen would get in trouble because things don't always work the same way that they work for one person, the way that they're going to work for another person, or different provinces have different ways of doing things. Meanwhile, as I've discussed many times on this channel, with regard to tax, everything is circumstantially dependent. That's how tax analysis works. Anyone who is out there giving one-size-fits-all advice, that's idiotic. There's no other word for it. Making sort of broad sweeping statements as to large groups of people and how that's going to work, sorry, that's not the way to look at it. And anybody that's got any kind of legal background knows that making findings of facts and conclusions of law, it's going to differ in every single case. That's the way it works. And then meanwhile, again, folks that are out there espousing legal notions, counseling people, providing sort of consultative information. Again, I've striven on this channel to be very clear. This is for educational purposes only. It's broad. It's just to put information out. It is not designed for people to draw legal or tax-related or any kind of accountancy-related conclusions. And as we've discussed in many other videos, doing that violates the restricted occupations as set forth in the decree that we've discussed in many other videos of 2020. Specifically legal services, accountancy, consulting, you could even argue agency and brokerage, secretarial. There's all kinds of legal prohibitions against foreigners discussing such things because they don't know what they're talking about most of the time. It's the Thai system. It's the Thai tax system. It's not what some foreigner thinks the Thai tax system is. And I know to many people, you're all going to burn me and say I'm semi-hypocritical because I myself was once a foreigner. One, I make that abundantly clear. I naturalized to Thai citizenship about 5 years ago. That being said, I don't get on this channel and make one-size-fits-all blanket claims about how tax policy is going to operate in Thailand. Meanwhile, we don't even know how it's going to operate in Thailand. Nothing's been promulgated to give us any further guidance other than the rescission of a rule that's existed heretofore. So anybody that's out there saying this is how it's going to be, I've made my own personal kind of predictions. I've said that, I think in the vast majority of cases, I think 80% of people probably don't need to worry about this. I've not said that as definitive. I've said that's just my intuition at this time. Meanwhile, yeah, I do think there's a strong possibility there's 20% of people that could be impacted by this. But each and every case is going to be different. And anybody that's out there, especially as a foreigner, who is already engaging in illegal activity by providing legal advice, accountancy advice, tax assessment advice, you're already operating illegally. So anybody that's listening to a person doing that, what are you doing? That person's, in my opinion, the most idiotic legal person ever. There's not even a word for it. I wouldn't say that's professional behavior, and I definitely wouldn't say that person's a legal professional, because if they're a foreigner, by definition, they're not a legal professional in Thailand. They cannot be. They're precluded by law, and There are criminal penalties also associated with that preclusion as well. But let's look at the reason for it, and this is why I get so upset. I know people are going to say out there in the comments, well, he became a Thai and he's just pulling the ladder up from underneath him. Well, you know what? There's a little of that too. And I kind of earned it. I've paid my dues out here. I like being Thai. And yeah, I've never claimed to be a Thai legal professional, nor will I ever. I am an American attorney, but I can provide some insight into it. I have been the managing director of this firm for over a decade and a half, and in that capacity, I do what I do, but I leave the Thai legal work to the Thai legal professionals, and this is why I get so angry. If the line has to be with me that, hey, foreign nationals cannot be involved in Thai legal matters. There's good reason for that. It's Thai law. These people don't know. And the other thing is, look, there's kind of some national sovereignty issues associated with that. If foreigners are getting in there monkeying around with how Thai law is interpreted, it's kind of like in the context of obscenity law in American jurisprudence. I used to teach a class on this here in Bangkok University. We would talk about obscenity law, and one of the components of the evolving nature of obscenity law in America was what was called contemporary community standards. And this was basically a way that the law evolved because people's mindsets evolved. Well, if Thai people's mindsets are influenced by foreign actors pertaining to the law here in Thailand, then the law here in Thailand could evolve in a way which is influenced by foreigners, which is exactly the reason for the preclusion under the list of restricted occupations, is to forestall exactly that from happening. This is why I get so passionate about it, because I love this country and I don't want this place to be any more foreign influenced in the negative than it needs to be. I've said it before and I'll say it again. People kind of say, well, you seem to give a few people a pass on COVID that were involved with that whole thing here in Thailand. Well, first of all, I didn't. If you go back and look at the record, we did say things at the time about problems that I saw with the whole legal reasoning behind it, and we got into the Nuremberg codes and talked about all of that good stuff. Never mind that. The reason I kind of do in my own head even give it sort of a pass is I viewed it as foreign influence. It was a foreign notion that came in here and said we had to do all this stuff, and it turned out that was pretty nonsensical. I have the same aversion to this phenomenon because I don't want to see Thailand's legal system be unduly influenced, and quite honestly, improperly influenced by any sort of foreign notions. I may have the fervor of the converted, I'll admit it. I may be the most conservative Thai you ever heard of. I don't want anything to change. In a lot of ways, that's how I feel about Thailand. I loved it when I got here. I wish we could freeze it that way and just keep going ahead. I know that's not possible, but when things are egregious and when there's something that I feel could harm Thailand, I feel obligated to point it out. And letting foreigners unduly and improperly influence legal thinking in this country is something that I find truly, truly dangerous. And I know there are those that are going to say, well, that's hypocritical coming from you, foreigner. Well, one, I became Thai. And two, I like to think that I sort of stay in my lane insofar as, I explain that there are legal issues in Thailand, but I'm not sitting here trying to give conclusions as if I was a Thai lawyer. That's not what I am. I'm just sort of providing some exposition so other people can do their own research and find out conclusions and come to and learn things, sort of educate themselves as to the sort of legal system here in the Kingdom of Thailand.